Bonjour, bonjour. It is a beautiful, sunny, and crisp Paris day, and I'm getting ready to go pop in to Notre Dame to share with you the last chapels of the choir and a little bit about some of the statuary. But it is a beautiful day, and so we are going to go pop right on in there. And at the end, I'll give you a little update on some of the stuff happening on the spire. So many of the statues that go around the choir here, two of them, specifically the kneeling ones, have been moved. So they used to be in the chapels, and they moved them out here. And this one took, I can't even tell you how long for me to find out and figure out who this guy was. But I was able to deduce it from his crest on the front. So this is a statue of Leon Adolphe Amet, and he was the archbishop in 1908. So he was born in 1850 and he died in 1920, but he was the bishop in 1908, and he was quite outspoken. And Claude Debussy at the time had written a play, an opera that was called The Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian in May of 1911, and he had put out, Cardinal put out a warning saying anybody that went to it would be excommunicated from the Catholic Church. But it is he almost looks like Pope John Paul, but it's a really beautiful piece. And I was able to figure out, because the crest at the top has Sacred Heart. And so because the church, when it reopened, there's quite a few things they don't actually have labeled or information on, including all of these pieces in the back. And because it wasn't there before, I had to do some work to figure out who it was. We'll do the whole inside of the choir the next video. But back here we also have the Eminence Cardinal Emmanuel Suard, and as you could tell, he was a cardinal during and bishop between World War II. So you see 3 dates there. The 1874 is when he was born, 1949 is when he died, and 1940 is when he became the Bishop of Paris. He became bishop specifically May 11th, 1940, which was also called the Exodus. So that's when everybody was fleeing Paris, and he was really pretty outspoken against the Germans. And the day after the Valdiv roundup, which was a really horrible incident here in France that I've done a video about as well, he sent a letter to Marshal Pétain, who was in charge of the Vichy government of France, denouncing it. But he was later criticized because he was a little too close to the Marshal. But this is a really beautiful one. Oh, the sun, it's so cold outside this morning, and the sun is coming up. And let me show you real quick. You can see the sun coming up through the angels, or through the windows. They're the angels. But I love this one here because this is the oldest piece monument that is in the church, that is of a tomb. And this is Simon Debussy. And last week I talked to you about who he was a little bit because of the fresco that's in the chapel behind me. It dates back to the 14th century. And this is his, this used to be underneath that fresco. So Simon Debussy, and he studied law. He was born in 1304. He was the canon of Notre Dame de Paris, down the Champagne region, and then he became the Bishop of Paris in 1290 until his death, or sorry, he died in 1304. But this is the oldest piece here in Notre Dame. And then one more plaque here of the Cardinal, another Cardinal Jean Verdier, Archbishop of Paris, Superior General of Saint-Sulpice. A lot of the bishops also had something to do with Saint-Sulpice. And as you already know, it's born in 1864, died in 1940. It is funny that some of, I don't know if they did this on purpose or it's just kind of how they laid out, but a lot of the cenotaphs where they are buried, they're kind of almost, some of them are kind of in chronological order. But as I said, he was the Archbishop in 1929. He stood up against the Nazis, and after the night of the Crystal Night in November 1938, he published a joint public letter with the other cardinals and bishops of Paris, criticizing the murder and the deplored what, quote, he said, the fatal outcome of racial theory in Germany. Very close to us, in the name of the rights of the race, thousands of men are hunted like beasts, stripped of their property, real outcasts who seek in vain with civilization an asylum and a piece of bread. So, awesome guy. This one was a little easier to decipher because it actually has his name on here. It's Louis Ernest Dubois. He was born 1856, died in 1929, and he was ordained September 20th, 1879. He was the youngest bishop of France at the time in Verdun. He became the Bishop of Paris on September 13th, 1920, and then he was also at the consecration of Sacré-Cœur, which is pretty awesome. And he served in the conclave of Pope Pius XI. But I love this one here with the fleur-de-lis and everything. Now the next one always has a crowd of people in front of it because they're trying to get to see the altar and the statue. So I'm going to try to hopefully pick a moment. I did come in first thing in the morning. Mass is going on, so no need to send me any messages about that, but I am behind it, and so I don't like to be next to it, as I said before. But I am doing this first thing so I could get in here before there's a lot of people, so I could show you a lot of it without also having to show a lot of people, being respectful of them. So no need to send me a message if you're upset about me doing this Mass. Just move on. Go about your day. So this one is another one that used to be in the St. Francis Chapel, and it is Francis Nicolas Morlot. He was born in 1795 to 1862. He was the Archbishop 1857 after the murder of Cibor, which I'm going to show you behind us. But he was very faithful. He stayed neutral between Napoleon III and Pope Pius IX. But I love that how they position. So he's here and he's looking towards the Pietà. And of course you see Louis XIV in that. And his crest. It's usually always pretty easy to find a bishop because usually it always has a bishop's hat there and then has whatever these things are. But now I'm gonna pop over and show you some of the chapels real quick. So today we are going to finish up the chapels back at the back side of the choir. And the first one today I'm going to show you is the Saint Guillaume. Saint Guillaume was a canon of Paris and an archbishop of Bourges from 1199 to 1209. Saint William, who he helped the poor. Saint Guillaume was also William, or Willie, as my pompier is named, but he helped the poor and the sick, and he put out a call to those in need. And he was the first canon, the Sainte de Notre Dame de Paris. And then on November 23rd, 1199, the Archbishop of Bourges died, and the brother of Henri de Sully, who was the Bishop of Paris, recommended Guillaume, and Sully was the one, of course, that built Notre Dame. But what's amazing in this chapel, and everybody always kind of stops and asks what this is. So this is the cenotaph of Claude Henry, who was the Count of Harcourt. He was the Lieutenant General of the King's Army in 1764 to 1769. And this piece specifically is done by Pigalle, Jean-Baptiste Pigalle, who also did pieces in Saint-Denis. It was created on the request of the wife of Count Henri, and that is her there on her knees. And her husband is coming out of his tomb, and you have the Angel of Death which I'll show you here in a second. They're on the right, and she's holding, the hourglass, saying it's time. And on the left is an angel that has a torch, but he's holding it down so the torch is extinguished. And so here it is, the wife kind of looking up and basically in her last moments of life saying, okay, I'm going to go off to be with my husband. And he's calling to her. So it's quite the piece. It is pretty amazing. And then you have the H on the wall for Harcourt. But you could see the skull, death up there. There is a piece similar to this, a little bit more morbid in Sainte, in Saint-Sulpice. I'm not sure what's in this box, but it has been in here since the cathedral opened. There's a lot of scaffolding behind these windows, of course, but look at how beautiful they are in the morning. And when I go out, I'll show you up above, because you have two of the windows here. Well, maybe I'll just back up, see if you could see it. Up on this side, you could see in the center, it's Adam and Eve there. And then on this side, you have the sacrifice of the bull. Those are both pieces that were originally in the south rose window. So when Viollet-le-Duc had to take that apart and reconstruct it, for stability, these were two pieces he took out, and they ended up putting them in here, which is kind of awesome. You also have this is another very old piece here. It's the cenotaph of the Jean Juvenal des Ursins, and it used to be much different. It used to be two huge pieces during the Revolution. Most of it was damaged, and Alexandre Lenoir took it apart, took it over to what is now the École des Beaux-Arts, saved them, and then the heads were really badly damaged, and they had those recreated out of terracotta. So they redid this base under Viollet-le-Duc. But it is, he was a prévôt of merchants, and he went to law school. And you can see 1431 is when they died. Usually when you see there's a little cross before the date, that means that's when they died. So you'll find that a lot if you're doing any research, especially on French or European history. But his wife she gave birth to 17 children. Oh la la. Bless that poor woman. And the children had this created much later. But the street that's really close to here that has the Rue des Ursins is named after them. That just goes along the right side, or the right bank of the river. But it's just really cool. Now this altar here, I don't love it. The top part of it is very reminiscent of what the altar of the choir looked like. And then this part of it was redone this year for the reopening, the bottom of it, because it's just a big white block. I just don't really see the point of this. But I do love the top, and I love how they incorporated the crucifix. These crucifixes were given by Pope Pius IX after the baptism of Napoleon III's son. And the crucifixes are really amazing because you have angels with some instruments of the Passion. So you have the nails, the Holy Cross, and of course, the crown of thorns. And each one of them has the same three angels, but I love how they put them here so you could see each one of them a little bit differently. And then the crucifix was also a gift. And it's really beautiful. Of course, all the painting in this chapel on the walls was all done by under Viollet-le-Duc, so he designed all of it. I think these ones look like corn. And I can't unsee it when I come in here. And now you can't. Just give you a little look. One of the other things about the chapels of how Viollet-le-Duc did them, because the south side, you get the sun coming through the windows. He designed, and I mentioned this last week, the colors of the chapels are different depending on the north and south side because of the way that the light will actually hit them. But we're going to pop out and go into the next chapel. Hear a little singing. So this is the chapel of Mary Magdalene. And luckily it still has its name. And the paintings on the wall, again, Viollet-le-Duc is the life of Mary Magdalene. Beautiful. Beautiful colors, all the beautiful blue. Blue is the color of Mary. That's why you also see blue in Catholic churches a lot. Which is a saint that has the color red. That's the one. And there's two plaques in this chapel, and we can't see them very well. But one was for the Archbishop of Bogota, Colombia, who is Monsignor Manuel Jose Arbolde. And I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, and then there's also one for Talleyrand, who was also a bishop, not the Talleyrand. He was the uncle of Talleyrand that most people will know because of Napoleon. This is the windows here are really great too, because they also have these little faces in there. These windows are safe from being taken out. The medallion at the top is for Monsignor Antonio Garibaldi. You can see that up at the very top in the window. But what I really love is the story of this gentleman here. And I still have a picture from before the fire, and see if I could find it and post it at the end of this, that it was still a picture I would look at during those first years after the fire, because I came in here late at night and just the outline of the statue against the windows was so amazing. But this is the Bishop Dominique Auguste Sibur. He was the Archbishop of Paris from 1848 to 1857. This piece, the statue itself, was done by three different artists: Paul Dubois, Joseph Lecomier, and Joseph Marius Rameau in 1868. And he shows the bishop here in prayer. Sibur was born in France, and after he entered the priesthood in Rome, he was sent to the Archdiocese of Paris. He served in the canon of Nimes until he moved to Paris in 1849. As the Archbishop of Paris in 1853, he officiated the marriage of Napoleon III and Eugénie. And just a month after the emperor was named the Emperor of France. A few years later, on January 3rd, 1857, while he was at Saint-Étienne-du-Mont, which is just up the hill, he was performing a ceremony when the former priest, Jean-Louis Verger, came in to the church, stabbed and killed the bishop right there in Saint-Étienne-du-Mont. So just an amazing, crazy story. He was found guilty, of course, and he was executed 27 days later. Court cases went pretty quick back then. But I love this one. The chapels on this side are rarely ever open, the smaller ones. There's only a few on this side, because you do have the treasury. You also have another entrance that goes to the sacristy, which is where the bishops go in and out, and because this side is linked to the buildings on the back. You don't have quite as many chapels on this side that are open and usable, but this one is really beautiful. See the windows at the top a little bit better today. Just a calm in the... Show you these windows real quick, just because the light is so beautiful. It's very cold though. It's 28 degrees this morning, but I looked and there is a day next week, as of right now, that says it's going to be 60 degrees. I mean, it's Paris, and so you really don't trust more than a few hours out when it comes to the weather, but I was very excited and already crossing off everything on my list that day. hope here's some beautiful light. You do have the treasury here. The treasury, you have to pay to go into there. There's a special ticket, but you can see at the very top in the stained glass, you can see the Virgin. That's the same one that's over the transept and over the altar in the center of the church. The hours are different, so as you could tell, that's not open yet. I think it opens at 10 o'clock, I believe, on a Saturday, later on Sunday. So this is kind of the last chapel, and it doesn't really have an official name, like on the maps and everything. It just doesn't have a name, but it is the Chapel of the Holy Oils. It was formerly the Chapel of Sainte, which, as you know, I love. So you have the story of Sainte there, and the one on the left is right before he's getting his head chopped off. And as I'm sure you know, if you've watched me or read anything I've written in the last 5-6 years, I do love Saint Denis and the story of him picking up his head and hiking over the hill of Montmartre and over to the town of Saint Denis, where he fell to his knees and finally died. A good 5 kilometers holding onto his head. But I do love this one too because there's some red in here. And so I don't know if they still actually use this for the holy oils, but this chapel is never open. It's always locked. So maybe that is... maybe that's true that they don't ever actually use them. But I do love the red. I love all the colors in this one. You have a medallion of a pelican up there, which is the arms of Denis Auguste Affre, and he is also the gentleman that is depicted here. This is also another one, and he was somebody that also was killed. And up above it, it says, "May my blood be the last to be spilt." This was done by Auguste Debay in 1860. And in the Acts of the Martyr, he reaches up to spread his message. And there's a bas-relief at the bottom. And so his story is that on June 27th, 1848 at 4:30 a.m., he died at the Hotel Chenezeau on the Rue Saint-Louis. But before that, he had been, there was this insurrection of June 1848. On June 25th, he thought he could help calm the crowd. So he demanded a ceasefire, which they did. And he rose up on the barricades and started speaking. And they do believe now that he wasn't shot directly, but it was a ricochet of a bullet that hit him. And he was taken to his home. This was just on the island next to this. And that is where he died 2 days later. He was Archbishop 1840 to 1848. But there's a few of the bishops here, especially on this side, that had a untimely, violent death. But it's really beautiful. I wish I could get inside this one, but like I said, this one's never open. And some of the chapels are closed at times, and some of them are open. But it is a really beautiful one. And of course, all the blue on the ceiling. But this is where I love to just find the little corners and look up, especially with all the light. One other thing that I'm doing now is a lot of research on the stained glass, which the stained glass of Notre Dame goes from the 13th century all the way up to the 19th century, 20th century. But the information of finding that, as usual, is not easy. But I'm working on that, and so we'll do a whole thing about that here at some point as well. But you could see a little bit. This side, there's still a lot of scaffolding up on this side. But these are all different saints and apostles, and also people important to the church, like Sully, who built it. And then, of course, you have all of the windows in the back. But we'll do that another time because I'm going deep into that. But just to give you a little view of everything. And we're going to pop outside for a minute because they did have on the church's social media that they have some of the pieces of the bottom of the spire. They've added some of the sculptures. And so I'm hoping maybe we could see it. But we're going to go find out. But I'm going to wait till Mass is over to walk back out. And we'll head on outside. The nativity scene is gone as well, that was on the other side, so that's kind of nice, gives it a little more space over there. And we also will talk about all of this amazing stuff that's here on the choir. So the next video we'll do, maybe not this week, but the week after, is going to be all about the choir walls, all the names that are here and pieces that are inside the choir. And this is the last week. On the 10th was the anniversary of the vow of Louis XIII. So I'll tell you about that in the next video. But if you don't know, also check out my Instagram, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge. And let's pop outside for a sec. There's the north rose window, just because it's so beautiful. No birds in here today, as of yet. Now we're gonna pop out. We could see anything up here at all, because they posted on, as I mentioned, on the Notre Dame social media, that they've added the statues onto the bottom of the spire. Let's see if you could zoom in there and see anything. So they're still working on the open work. If we could zoom in and see the face of Philippe, I would be thrilled. The precious rooster. But it should be, the spire, they say, should be done by the start of March, which we're just a few weeks away from. It's amazing how patina the lead roof already is. You can see the clock. This clock has been finished for quite some time, but the clock on the other side of the south transept is also visible. It is rather chilly this morning. I have my little hot pocket warmers in my coat. There is a whole lot of fencing around today, so I don't know if there's going to be there's definitely extra security in place. Oh, here we go. A little bit. But she's getting there. One last little view. How beautiful it looks this morning in Paris. Gorgeous. Thank you so much for joining and checking in on the old gal, as I call her, Our Lady. And make sure you're following me on Instagram, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, or Facebook. This Monday, the episode of the podcast is going to be about the contemporary windows of the 1930s that were placed inside of Notre Dame, very briefly, and the story of those, and also how I went down to the town of Troyes earlier I think it was in the fall, to go see those. And so those were pretty fantastic. And I've also done a whole video when I was in Troyes of those, but listen to the podcast on Monday where I'll talk all about that. And then we are coming up on the 250th episode of the Paris History of Becca Hemingway, and I'm actually still trying to decide what I should do for that one special episode, other than to talk about Notre Dame. But I hope you all are having a fantastic weekend. In the States, I believe it's a holiday weekend, but here in France, we don't have a holiday this weekend, but we get plenty of holidays, a lot more than in the US. So hopefully you're having a fantastic long weekend, and thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you very soon.